Hey all, Scott here. Spoiler alert! I always feared being spoiled on what's inside the PlayStation Vita box, but now I'm finally willing to show it off to everyone while keeping my experiences pure. I don't want to see it. Don't meet your heroes. Alright, looks like we have... Oh my god, little deviants. What's better than getting a brand new video game console? Using it. Name a more exhilarating pleasure. You open up your brand new Nintendo 64, rip it out of the box, plug it into the TV, pop in the gate. My crotch hurts. Doesn't it just make sense to get some kind of thing to do with your game system when you buy it? I mean, sure, these days our consoles can connect to the internet and do all kinds of things out the box, but that doesn't mean we should be deprived of a surprise. Pack-in games. Now, I consider these to be a different beast from your average everyday console bundle. Oh wow, big man, too good to call this a pack-in. Well, f*** a guy with an opinion, I guess. Nah, I'm talking games that were packed in as a standard with the console. Title synonymous with coming alongside the system. You can't imagine that game without the console. You can't imagine that console without the game. Easiest example, Wii Sports. All right, everybody knows that as the Wii's pack-in. For a while, at least here in North America, you couldn't buy it separately. It was only available alongside the Wii console for the longest time. That is a pack-in and shows just how important of a job it is to be one. It has the duty to sell you on the console after you buy it. It's supposed to represent everything that system is meant to be, take advantage of its unique capabilities, get you excited for the future, and they're almost always considered throwaway freebies. They aren't given the respect they deserve. You just try to do what they do. Dude, I'm pissed. Pack-in titles go in and out of fashion. I'm sure most of the time they aren't included to keep costs down, but back when consoles couldn't connect to the internet, just what were you expecting us to do with these systems? The Nintendo 64 launched with only 2 games available for it, and neither one were in the box. You had to buy them separately. The system doesn't even do anything when you turn it on. Hell, I would at least appreciate a screen telling me what to do next. That just goes to show how lucrative the pack-in was. These consoles were paperweights without a game to play on them, and these games helped you do something with the systems until you finally got a good game. In my opinion, pack-in titles have a lot to live up to. They're your first impression of a video game console. If it's bad, that's almost worse than if you meet a newborn baby for the first time, just trying to have a conversation and it's slimy and goopy and screaming. I'm done trying. There's an art to the pack-in. It's gotta be a good introduction to a new generation while also being a good game on its own. A system seller, a one-of-a-kind experience. Well, let's just see how well these pack-ins did their job. We'll hop around throughout history from pack-in to pack-in and see how they rank as pack-ins on the historically definitive pack-in review scale. There was only ever one, and it was from 1934. They were confused too. This was before stars were invented. Following the success of the original Wii, Nintendo knew they had to bring the big guns with the Wii U. The Wii had Wii Sports bundled in, a perfect representation of what made that console unique that was immediately understandable and enjoyed by the masses. Without Wii Sports, the Wii would have gone nowhere, or at least somewhere not nearly as far as it went. So Nintendo wanted to try this thing where they made a similar bundled-in experience for the system's successor. It's called f***ing up. Nintendo Land, the Wii U's pack-in title. Kinda. See, the system launched with 2 versions, the basic set with just the bare necessities for 300 bones, and the deluxe set with a few extra accessories and the Nintendo Land game for 350 bones. I would say you'd be a fool not to buy the Wii U deluxe set, but I can't because you'd be buying a Wii U. But hey, Nintendo Land was sold separately, retailing for $60 whole, so being bundled in with a system for $50 more, plus a slew of random garbage included alongside it, come on, that's a steal. But monetary value is the least of our concern right now. How does Nintendo Land hold up as a pack-in? Well, the entire game design philosophy behind this project is to be a pack-in. That's literally its destiny. It just doesn't feel right as a standalone release. The game is laser focused on showing you as many uses of the Wii U's fancy new controller as possible. And Nintendo Land does so through the visual treat known as a virtual Nintendo theme park. She's gone. Yeah, that decision killed some of the mass market appeal the Wii U could have had. I mean, to people like us, we think there's no way in hell you could go wrong with a minigame based on the mysterious Murasame Castle from the Famicom Disk System, but for some reason, Dad disagrees. I mean, Wii Sports had bowling. Nintendo Land had Octopus Dance. This game is incredibly fun and obscenely well made. And while I think many non-gamers can get a kick out of some of the minigames at play here, the barrier for entry is far too large. You think I can convince Grandma to play a minigame based on Pikmin? Well, I can't. She's dead. You don't have to be a Nintendo fan to enjoy these games, but the theming makes it look like this is just for pre-existing Nintendo fans. But with the gameplay, it's a lot of fun and does a great job using the controller. Though it doesn't do a great job validating the controller. Each year after Nintendo Land launched, people would still have discussions about the Wii U not having its Wii Sports moment yet, a game that made you go, so that's why this exists. People didn't see Nintendo Land as that game, which probably frustrated Nintendo considering that's all Nintendo Land was designed to be. I mean, it showed how asymmetrical multiplayer works. The players on the TV see something different compared to the players on the gamepad. It also had some single player only games, many of which I'm not sure understood the assignment. Balloon Trip Breeze, based on Balloon Fight from the NES. Here we use the touchscreen to push our character around via the wind to avoid obstacles. We see everything on the TV and a zoomed in shot on the gamepad. Wow, I need a Wii U! Some of these games just feel like filler. Most of them are still good fun, but fun in the way online Flash games were fun. Donkey Kong's Crash Course has a similar format to the previous game. The screen is zoomed out on the TV, zoomed in on the gamepad, and it's a really addictive physics-based puzzle platformer where you try to get through the obstacle course without breaking your cart. But these two games, while good, aren't necessary on Wii U. They don't need the gamepad. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean Nintendo Land is a poor pack-in title. It's actually a great one. There's so much content here. 12 minigames with multiple levels and forms of replay value, collectibles to decorate your park with, spectacular graphics and music, fun and inventive uses of the Wii U's technology. If this was the only game you had, it could keep you busy for a while. But it's just not at the same level as Wii Sports when it comes to being a true system seller and showcase for why you need this controller setup, which is a problem considering that's what Nintendo made Nintendo Land to do. So while it's a really fun game with cool uses of its console's tech, it didn't succeed at its goal as a pack-in title. This was positioned as the Wii U's Wii Sports, and it failed to capture that same audience and magic. A lot of these mini games with their controller implementation feel far more forced than anything in Wii Sports ever did. Really fun game, great to get this with the console, but didn't accomplish what it wanted to do as a pack-in. Packed in with the Super Nintendo, we got Super Mario World, one of the greatest games of all time. How's Scott gonna bitch about this one?
I found a way.
I love Super Mario World, and getting this for free with your Super Nintendo was a steal. I mean, this is often considered one of the best SNES games, and it was just a giveaway, no big deal. So this is an outstanding value being bundled in. Though, as a console showcase, it's a bit more subtle. It's not the flashiest game, and because of that, it was easy for critics and players at the time to compare it to competing games on competing hardware, like Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. Doing so, Mario World doesn't look all too revolutionary. Not saying it wasn't, rather, Sonic was this brand new thing we've never seen before, while Mario World was a pretty logical follow-up to what we got on the NES. As a system showcase, it's not at all in your face. In fact, I'd say the games that launched with the Super Nintendo sold separately did a far better job of that. But what Super Mario World had that those games didn't was this humongous map of dozens upon dozens of levels with countless secrets to discover, endless replay value. The 40th time you play Super Mario World is just about as fun as the first. Add that all together and you have a pack-in title that, while lacking a bit of the innovation games like Super Mario Bros. 1 or even Wii Sports brought to the table, made up for it and then some when it came to value and fun. Better yet, it didn't include Octopus Dance. It's like an abacus.
This counts.
Astro's Playroom was considered the pack-in title for the PlayStation 5. So is Settings. Pre-installed on PlayStation 5 consoles. Alright, fine enough. I'll let this one slide because Astro's Playroom, damn it, I'm getting emotional. This is one of the most joy-filled, simple, fun experiences I've ever had on a PlayStation console, focusing on showing exactly what the new DualSense controller can do. It's a basic 3D platformer at the end of the day, but it just feels so good and polished to oblivion. Plus, it's chock full of hundreds of PlayStation references, games, hardware, help. The final boss is a PlayStation 1 tech demo. Well, actually, this may have some Nintendo Land syndrome.
Oh, God!
At least in the sense that so much of what makes this a treat is the deep cut references, because at its core, it's a smooth as butter platformer with really cool controller gimmicks here and there, but you finish it in about an hour and nothing is all too mind-blowing. The uses for the controller are all pretty damn superfluous if I'm being honest, and they're mainly just used to show off in really exaggerated ways how some of these features could be used in games. Climbing a rock wall? Well, the triggers can vibrate and increase resistance to really feel like your character is grabbing onto something. If Astro's Playroom wasn't on the PS5 and didn't use a controller capable of such things, I think we would live.
Think.
PlayStation consoles historically haven't had pack-ins all too often, so I think it's impossible to complain about this.
Think!
You know what? I'll say it. I think being a pack-in made this game worse. Because it had to be free, included with the system, it's obviously quite short, and while I think it's not fair to call it just a tech demo, it's not a full-fledged game either, though if you want to collect every single thing in the game, that could keep you busy for a bit. But after I beat it, I just wanted more and thought to myself, what if this wasn't a pack-in? What if it could have just been its own game? Imagine the possibilities! Instead, it's just a really fun freebie on the PlayStation 5 that, while doing a good job showing off the controller's tech, is more concerned with being a solid little 3D platformer and not much else. When the Nintendo Switch launched, one game had such high levels of pack-in energy that everybody was befuddled when it was sold separately instead.
Where the f is it?
But that would be in a perfect world, and we live in reality. 1-2 Switch was often suggested to work better as a pack-in title for Nintendo Switch. It was only ever sold separately aside from being a freebie in some Mario Tennis Aces bundle. I want to talk about this one, not as a pack-in game because it wasn't one, rather everybody's opinion that it should have been a pack-in game. You want this forced onto you? 1-2 Switch was an attempt by Nintendo at a new type of casual game, utilizing the Nintendo Switch hardware at launch. 2 players facing off against each other. Across the 28 included mini-games, most of them have very little happening on screen. Instead, you want to focus on the other person, listen for audio or feedback from the Joy-Con controllers. It's an incredibly creative idea. Nintendo Land may have been a great game, but it felt like Nintendo developed it with the intention of it being Wii Sports for the Wii U. 1-2 Switch feels more like some developers had a unique idea and wanted to create an experimental multiplayer game, which I can get behind. With a gun! 28 mini-games. Yeah, sounds great. Did I mention 28 of those mini-games are worthless? 1-2 Switch fails as both a video game and a console showcase. These mini-games are over within a minute, and none of them have even a modicum of depth. I guess the replay value comes from the wacky fun you'll have in real life. The game will put you and your friends in such interesting scenarios. I don't need this game to act like a gorilla. As a console showcase, the only things people ever mention is the eating contest minigame, where you use the IR camera on the Joy-Con to gorge, and the ball count minigame, moving the Joy-Con around and feeling the HD rumble replicate the feel of balls rolling around in there. That's it. That's all 1-2 Switch does to show something the Switch can do. Those games feel somewhat out of place in the package. If more of them were like that, I think it would have fit better as a pack-in. I will admit the game can be fun when played with the right people, and nobody in the group has ever played it before. And it's right when the Switch launched, so everybody's more excited for the console. And dumb, everybody's fucking dumb. But after the first time playing, there's nothing. So, yes, retailing for $50 by itself, that's a dick move. Being your first Nintendo Switch experience coming bundled in with the system is that much better. Would you rather be shot for free or for $50? This being a pack-in would have given me such a bad taste for the console that I think while it was grossly overpriced, Nintendo made the right call selling it separately. The original Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt combination cartridge. The most iconic pack-in title of them all. It's like everybody knows what they get with an NES. Whiplash. Yeah, Super Mario Bros. Wasn't originally the pack-in for the Nintendo Entertainment System. No. The original SKU contained 2 separate cartridges for Duck Hunt and Gyromite. Yeah, Gyromite. It uses the Rob the Robot accessory that originally came with the NES.
Because something had to.
Yeah, Rob was included alongside the Zapper gun to make the NES seem more like the ultimate toy rather than a video game system during a time in which retailers didn't trust that video games could sell. So the original pack-in games for the NES weren't even games you just sat down and played a controller with. They were both games that relied heavily on or required accessories. Well, how is this gonna prepare me for the rest of the console? A pack-in game is supposed to give me an idea of how this generation is gonna go, and how many of the 700 plus NES games released require the Zapper? Well, at least we have Robin Clute. God damn it. Shortly into the NES's life, Nintendo introduced the new standard pack-in title, Super Mario Bros., while also keeping Duck Hunt in some bundles, with the combo cartridge being the one everybody had. This was the pack-in during the most popular era of the console. Considering how Super Mario Bros. Changed the video game industry and is still played endlessly to this day, shows how this was the pack-in. I'm not sure if anything will ever top it. Not only did it revolutionize gaming, it was the perfect teaching tool for customers to learn this system. What do these buttons do? How do most games work? What you can expect from this console. And if you were lucky, you got Duck Hunt too, and thank God, because I needed a healthier coping mechanism. I think Duck Hunt was a great inclusion because it's something anybody can understand, and it demos great. Look, I'm shooting the ducks! However, it's a very short and simple experience, whereas Super Mario Bros. Has secrets, power-ups, 32 levels. It was an unbelievably deep game for 1985, and paired excellently with the more gimmicky and shallow Duck Hunt. Welcome to video games. This game right here was one of the de facto pack-ins for the Atari 2600. Combat. Its premise couldn't be simpler. Two people take control of one tank each, or other vehicles and other modes, and see who wins. It's a very simple game. So simple you can only play with two players. The other tank isn't controlled by the computer when you're playing alone. Yeah, that kind of forces your pack-in game to only appeal to customers with 4 hands or a sister. Listen, combat can be fun, but I think bundling a multiplayer-only game with your console doesn't make much sense. I think packing in Space Invaders, Asteroids, Breakout, I don't know, any of those would have worked. They're games you can play alone or have fun passing off to somebody else in the house. Or they could have waited and spent more time on combat, figuring out how to make it a single-player game in addition to a multiplayer game, and boom, we would have been golden. But no, instead they've led me to stay up at night thinking, gosh, I wish Atari packed in a different game with the Atari 2600 in 1977. Why do I wish that? What? The Nintendo 3DS had no pack-in games, says the Outcast. The 3DS may not have had a traditional game that came in box with the handheld, but that didn't mean it didn't come with something. The pre-installed software on the device. Yeah, the 3DS basically came with 3 games, more if you want to count Activity Log. How do I win? First up is Face Raiders. First up is StreetPass Me Plaza. So the 3DS did this wild thing where if you had it on you in sleep mode while walking around, if you passed another 3DS user, you'd see their Me pop up via StreetPass. Hey Dad, I'm putting myself out there. With all these Mii's you come across, you can then play StreetPass games like Puzzle Swap and Find Me, with others eventually being offered as paid downloadable content. I never experienced much of StreetPass, mainly because I was ashamed to be a Nintendo fan when the 3DS was new. I was 14 years old and wanted to put up a facade. I don't like Nintendo, I like having a big stinky crotch. So this thing just kind of rotted in my sock drawer until that fateful moment whenever I wanted to sin. But I did play more of the other bits of pre-installed software, AR games and Face Raiders. AR games utilize the outer cameras of the 3DS and the collection of cards that every system came with. No matter how many revisions of the 3DS released, no matter how much they cut costs on some models, they were damn sure to include AR cards. I'm gonna tune into the news one day and they're gonna announce the last tree on Earth has just died. How could we have prevented this? This was always a cute little distraction, but nothing more really. Same can be said for Face Raiders. These both feel more like fun tech demos using the 3DS cameras rather than full games included for free. But I'm not one to complain about these being included. I'm one to complain about how I accidentally hover over these icons more than actually play them. The Nintendo DS introduced a whole new type of people to gaming. People, those who never picked up a controller before, were suddenly using the DS every day, playing games like Brain Age, Nintendogs, Art Academy, and even dipping their toes into more core titles like New Super Mario Bros. With that in mind, what was the Nintendo DS pack-in title at launch? Not even the full game. Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt, a demo cartridge for the upcoming Metroid Prime Hunters, which launched 2 years after the DS released. My God! I mean, thanks for the demo, but by the time the game came out, I already forgot this came with the system. Bundling a demo for Prime Hunters shows how the DS wasn't always meant to be a casual gaming device for everybody. In those early years, it's pretty apparent Nintendo wanted to push the DS as a bit of a powerhouse, and this game helped showcase that. Plus, there's enough to do. There's a really basic multiplayer mode, 3 single-player missions, and a trailer to watch. You know, if I bought a DS at launch, I think this was a pretty cool bonus. I'd also have been 7. What better game to get with your Sega Genesis than Adjusted Varmint? Yeah, when the Sega Genesis first released, it didn't have a lot of the titles people recognize it for, like Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3. What Sega was trying to push with the Genesis in its early years was how comparable it was to arcades. Sure, the NES could play older arcade games like Pac-Man, alright, but when it got more contemporary arcade hits at the time, like Strider, Narc, and Ninja Turtles, how is this surprising to anybody?
Man, this pumpkin can't play football.
The Sega Genesis was advertised to have arcade quality versions of games, so what better way to show that off than with Altered Beast?
Implying this was the best case scenario?
Altered Beast was never great. You look at reviews from back in the day, critics were still mixed on it. It's just so slow, lame, and clunky. The only reason I ever play it to this day is due to how recognizable it is. Like, that's a face I can remember, but it's never because I actively want to play it. I find Altered Beast to be incredibly mediocre, and the only reason it was bundled in with the Genesis was because it was an arcade game on the system, it was made by Sega, which means they didn't need to do any fancy licensing deals, and, I mean, it was badass! I don't want to play Nintendo, I'm grown up now, I want to play... I hope that's his leg. But Altered Beast didn't last as the Genesis pack-in for long, eventually being replaced by Sonic the Hedgehog. Now this is more like it. Sonic 1 showcased the Genesis's power and capabilities of arcade quality visuals without being an arcade game. This was made just for the Sega Genesis, while also having far more mass appeal than Altered Beast, being a platformer featuring one of the greatest character designs of all time. See, Altered Beast may have been badass, but was too gritty and hardcore. Sonic had this great balance where he was colorful and cute, but had attitude and was cool as hell. You appeal to everybody with him, and coupled with the speed of the game's first level, Sonic the Hedgehog was the ideal pack-in. The game you can easily compare to competing games on competing hardware and immediately point out the differences in what made the game special. Gun to your head, do that with Altered Beast.
If you want to kill me, just do it.
Fucking duh. Let's be fair, looking at it critically as a game, Wii Sports is nothing more than a tech demo with some garnish. There's not a ton here, but what is here couldn't be utilized any smarter. You got 5 sports included, and the ones they picked were ingenious. They're all sports we know. Who needs a refresher on the rules? Baseball, tennis, bowling, golf, and boxing were the ideal choices as everybody knows them and knows how to mimic them. That's key here, as the Wii was all about the motion controls of the Wii remote. How do you showcase the possibilities? Create a collection of 5 sports everybody knows and control them by lying to yourself. Oh yeah, I'm playing baseball. Wii Sports was very simple. There's no single player, online multiplayer, or leaderboards. It has painfully basic graphics, but all of these things that seem to be negatives helped it succeed at the end of the day. These sports are timeless in real life, and they're so well executed in this game. No tutorial necessary, you just hop right in and play, which means adding countless other things around them would just complicate the experience. Sure, a single player campaign would be nice, but Wii Sports doesn't need it. Golf and bowling will be popular in real life until the end of time, and they're represented so well in this game that, honestly, the same applies to them here. Wii Sports will always be pure and casual fun. It does a perfect job validating the Wii, and the Wii does a great job validating it. Because let's be honest, if this was a pack-in for the Xbox 360, well, I'd feel better about my physicality. I'd do anything in Wii Sports, I'm pulling a muscle. This is what sold the Wii, and it may have done it a little too well. So many people were eating up Wii Sports, they forgot other games released for the Wii. Worse games. Honestly, Wii Sports may have set the precedent for Wii software going forward, which was both good and bad. This software library is chock full of low effort, low quality garbage, and it's one of those things where you feel that some people looked at Wii Sports and didn't think it went much deeper than that. Oh, people want motion control games with bad graphics and no content. And it's like, yeah, Wii Sports wasn't a looker, but it felt more like a stylistic choice rather than due to incompetency or laziness, though that's easier to say now compared to in 2006 when this launched. And it was light on content because it had a damn reason to be. It was bundled in with the system. If it wasn't, then I'd have something to say. F this game. Ah, Tetris, the classic go-to original Game Boy game, and it was included for free. This turned the Game Boy from a kid's toy into something everybody could enjoy, and while Tetris was originally available on personal computers, the handheld format of the Game Boy alongside its affordable price point and everlasting battery life led to this being a match made in heaven. A game that works perfectly within the Game Boy's limitations, one of the only games you could see on it. With a screen like this, Tetris works. I wouldn't say perfectly, but it works. For either quick pick up and play sessions or long-lasting car rides, Tetris was the game to pop in. Sure, Super Mario Land would have been a solid pack-in choice, but Tetris ended up having so much more wide appeal. When Microsoft was creating their own motion controller to go head-to-head with the Wii, they knew a pack-in title was necessary to really seal the deal and show the world how Kinect for the Xbox 360 mattered. It didn't. Kinect Adventures! Everybody congratulate the best-selling Xbox 360 game of all time because it must have earned that. Listen, Kinect Adventures isn't abhorrent, it's just really half-assed. Like, it doesn't feel like a well-designed game to validate the Kinect, it just feels like Microsoft knew they had to include a pack-in and whip this up in a few months. This is a game that was designed from the start to be free, not a game you'd willingly buy if it wasn't included in the box. With that being said, there are some fun little mini games in the package that work alright, but it's just not enough, man. I don't think anybody really bought a Kinect for what this game was offering. Similar to the Kinect, Sony was creating their own motion controller peripheral for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation Move, and decided they needed to include a pack-in as well, that being Sports Champions. Wow, table tennis, volleyball, gladiator duel, disc golf, bocce, and archery. This says to me, let's do a sports compilation, but make damn sure we don't do any sports from Wii Sports. Because in a world where Wii Sports doesn't exist, there is no way in hell they'd include bocce ball. Sports Champions doesn't do anything that a million other Wii games haven't already done by this point. The controls work well, but they also did in Wii Sports Resort, so who the hell cares? Well, have you ever played Gladiator Duel? This is genuinely one of the best things the PlayStation Move has ever been responsible for. Grab 2 moves per person with one hand holding the shield, the other the weapon, and you have one of the greatest feeling motion-controlled multiplayer combat games ever created. It is good. The other sports are a fine distraction, but this is good enough to make this package, overall, a decent pack-in title. When the Wii Mini launched,
Cutting straight to the punchline on that one.
for only 100 bones here in the US during the holiday of 2013, I thought that would have been it. You get a Wii system, remote, nunchuck, and all the necessary cables for a clean 100. Makes sense? But they just had to include Mario Kart Wii, which sold for $40 by itself for free. What a deal! How could you be pissed off at this thing? But the AV cables are included. Regardless, Mario Kart Wii is such a powerful pack-in with so much content. Though it is a strange one. I mean, look, the white Wii wheel accessory was such a large part of the identity to this game, alongside the online multiplayer, and it's the pack-in for the Wii system that just includes a red Wii remote and nunchuck and no online capabilities. At least they scrubbed the Wii wheel out of the box art on the packaging, but not the Wi-Fi connection logo. Though still, I feel like maybe New Super Mario Bros. Wii would have made more sense here. No online works well with the red aesthetic, plus the Wii Mini feels oddly retro with how it's designed, which fits New Super Mario Bros. Classic formula more than Mario Kart Wii. So much value here, though. It's hard to complain about this as the pack-in for the Wii Mini. I just think there are other games that would have fit this package a bit better. The PlayStation Vita's pack-in game is technically Little Deviants, as it was included in the first edition bundle, the launch version. Remember when Sony was dogging on Nintendo with the 3DS, spouting out no self-respecting adult would play that in public? They say as they pack in Little Deviants. This is just a minigame collection utilizing the features of the handheld, the touchscreen, the rear touchpad, gyroscope, camera. It's all here, but Little Deviants is only really meant to use these things and nothing else. Yeah, maybe one of the only Vita games to make active use of the back touchpad, and while it may have been intended to show how it can be used in future titles, I think they accidentally showed how absolutely fucking dreadful it is to use it. Why would I ever want to do this? There's no staying power with any of these mini games. They're endurance rounds. They last for 30 seconds and then reset for round 2, then a round 3, so on and so on. And they rarely ever use the tech in cool or interesting ways. They just use it. There's no point to this. Just because you make a game that uses the Vita's camera in a few minigames, it doesn't mean I immediately think, oh wow, now this thing is all coming together. It's not bad. It's just one of the most disposable and forgettable video game experiences. And that is not what you want for a pack-in game. It feels like it goes against everything Sony was pushing the Vita to be. They wanted it to look like a PlayStation 3 on the go, so why make this game the pack-in? It makes the Vita look like a joke. Where's Has-Been Heroes when you need it?
There's an art to the pack-in game, and hopefully you were able to see that through all the examples given. It has to be a great game in its own right, while also being a console showcase. And I gotta be honest, guys, I don't think Little Deviants is great at either.